And here to talk to us are Gardner and Billy Guy, who together sang lead on several of their biggest hits back in the 50s. Carl, we've had several other groups in Britain calling themselves the Coasters, or the original Coasters. Now, you are, I believe, the original Coasters.
Yes, Richard, I think that's a great word to say, the original, because we're here now, and we are really the original group.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of these other groups? Do they have any claim at all to calling themselves the Coasters?
In a sense, in the United States, they have the right to work. Mm-hmm. Well, even though they were not original, I won't mention the name, but the guy that has came over here was formerly with this group, but just for a little while. We let him go. He went to California and started himself a group. So the only way you can stop this thing in America is to get an injunction against them, and it costs quite a bit of money to keep going through that in every state in the union to do that. Mm-hmm. in the States.
Yeah. Billy, you and Carl sang lead on all the early great hits like Yakety Yak and Charlie Brown and Poison Ivy and all those things. And then, all of a sudden, at the end of the 60s, it seemed to come to a stop. Why was that?
Well, during that time, we've always been able to work clubs because basically we were a grown-up act, legitimate nightclub. And so it's like most groups die because they cater to absolute teenage feel in the States. Mm-hmm. But they can't go to nightclubs. So if you get a basic good nightclub act, you really don't need a record that strong, or it's always good to have, but you can work, per se, like at least 40 weeks out of the year, You can really work. And a record, well, as far as record-wise, it's like when the trend changes. You like when we started, there wasn't that many people in the business, and now it's like, wow, the butcher's son and everybody else want to make a record, So like you're fighting all of this, and like really with the oldie thing that's coming back, the trend is going around. So we were fortunate enough to be working to wait for the turn. And like now in the States, there's a revolution of oldies.
Yeah. But what made people stop wanting to buy Coasters records in, say, 1960, 61? Why did they stop buying your records?
Well, I was telling some more people here in the nightclubs that we worked here about what happened. It's not a matter that they stopped buying them, but there was a new sound in music that came by. We want to thank the Beatles especially for making a change in the States, especially, if I may mention that again. In order to even make more money. The Beatles were a great asset to the artists to make a little more money in the States and maybe abroad from there. So we appreciate that, but in the meantime, it's just a matter of a change in music, and no one really stopped buying the Coasters record. We fell out the picture for a while because the trend changed. And because the trend did change, we dropped out, but we were working steady in nightclubs and trying to figure out which way to go. So we held back, signed no contracts, and we're back with our old writers now, Lieber and Stoller, and we're doing older tunes now, but updated. And I think it's bringing us back, and we have a record out now called Love Portion Number 9, seems to be doing very well.
Yeah, it's in the American charts, isn't it?
Very well, yes.
Tell me the story of that record, how you came to record it and put it out.
Tell them, Billy.
Well, if you've never met Lieber and Stoller, you're missing something. They're the greatest producers I know. We basically cut this in '64. And in the States, there's a thing called Latin funk, which is a cross between R&B and Latin soul. And now the kids, most of your dances in the States is to Latin funk music. So we brought a Latin band in, took the same old tracks, redone it, and then put a Latin flavor to it, and it's right up to date. In fact, it's more up to date. I think we're about the third with a Latin funk record out in the States, and that's why it's doing so well.
But it's more or less a track that you recorded in 1964.
Right. Well, most of the stuff that we've done, it was too soon. Like we have albums cut now that we cut in the early 60s that will be released now. Yeah.
There's the big oldies revival going on in the States at the moment, isn't there? How have you participated in that?
Well, we've done other things. The guy that's responsible for is a guy named Richard Nader in the States. There's a lot of old groups coming back. Like we said, that since you've not heard from us in those past 5 or 6 years, we have worked steady. Now, we have other groups in the States that says, man, look, let's forget it, and they went to work, probably had jobs and everything. Then Richard Nader started calling older groups, and they got back together, such as the Five Satins, the Crest, the Shirelles, you name them, and they started getting themselves back together. And we played Madison Square Garden first, and it was such a turnout crowd. We had over 20,000 people and 5,000 outside waiting to get in there who could not get in. And from there, we took a tour across the United States, which was very successful. So this is a thing that everybody just left their jobs and got back together. So you'll find the moon glows back now. They're all back.